The restaurant was small, tucked between a laundromat and a pharmacy on the corner of a busy downtown street. The sign above the window read Moon Garden, an aging Chinese family restaurant that smelled of ginger, garlic, and warm jasmine rice. It had been there for decades. The walls were lined with faded photos of smiling customers, dusty lanterns, and a slowly turning paper fan that watched over everyone who entered. Aisha, a young black woman in her early 20s, worked there as a waitress. She wore her hair tied up, a simple necklace resting against her collarbone, and an expression that could shift from warm hospitality to quiet resilience. She had been working double shifts to pay for her younger brother's school fees and to slowly chip away at medical bills left behind after their mother passed away. Life hadn't been gentle, but Aisha had learned to move with dignity. The restaurant was quiet that afternoon, sunlight streaking across the tables. Only a few customers were finishing their lunch. Aisha was refilling tea when the door opened, and a group of sharply dressed men walked in, loud laughter echoing behind them. They were businessmen, expensive suits, gleaming watches, and voices full of confidence. At the center of the group was Richard Coleman, a CEO rumored to be worth hundreds of millions. He had a reputation, arrogant, entitled, always needing to prove he was above everyone else. The men sat down, speaking in low but excited tones about a contract with a Chinese corporation being finalized later that evening. Richard leaned back, smug. "If this deal goes through," he bragged, "we'll control half the imports in the region. But we need to impress them. Show cultural respect." One of his men shrugged. "We could hire a translator?" Richard rolled his eyes. "No, I want something memorable, something impressive." His eyes scanned the room, falling on Aisha as she approached. "Excuse me," he said, waving her over. "We're celebrating. Bring us your most expensive wine." Aisha nodded respectfully. "Of course, sir." But Richard wasn't done. He smirked, lowering his voice so the whole table could hear. "You know, I read somewhere that restaurants like this only hire staff who can say at least one phrase in Chinese. Something simple. Just to look authentic," he chuckled. "Though I suppose you wouldn't know any. Would you, sweetheart?" The table laughed. Aisha paused. Her eyes remained calm, but the sting hit. The owner's wife, Mrs. Lin, looked up from behind the counter, her face tightening with worry. Aisha spoke softly, still polite. "I don't think speaking Chinese has anything to do with appearance." "Sir?" Richard leaned in, enjoying the moment. "Tell you what, I like a good gamble." He pulled out his checkbook, flipping it open with theatrical flair. "If you can speak any Chinese, proper Chinese, not just a word, you get, let's say," he wrote on the slip, $500,000. His men erupted with laughter. Aisha blinked. Mrs. Lin gasped, shaking her head frantically. "Don't," she whispered under her breath. "You don't need to prove anything to people like that." But Aisha wasn't doing it for them. She was thinking of late nights studying alone by lamplight. She was thinking of her mother, who taught her to love languages because words open doors. She was thinking of her younger brother, waiting at home, hopeful. Slowly, she set the wine bottle down. And then she began to speak. Not just a sentence, not just a phrase. Fluent, elegant Mandarin flowed from her like river water. 欢迎光临月圆餐厅，很高兴为您服务。您今天想喝点什么？如果您对中国文化感兴趣，我可以跟您介绍菜的来历，也可以陪您聊天。Welcome to Moon Garden Restaurant. I'm happy to serve you. If you're interested in Chinese culture, I can tell you about the history of our dishes. I can also join your conversation if you like. The restaurant went silent. Utterly silent. Richard's smile fell away. Slowly, painfully. But Aisha wasn't finished. She switched to Cantonese, the dialect used in the restaurant's region of origin, smooth, confident, effortless. Then to Shanghainese. Then to Sichuan dialect, each tone precise, each rhythm authentic. Mrs. Lin covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes. Richard's men stared like they had seen a ghost. One of them whispered, "What? How?" Aisha finally stopped and took a calm breath. Her voice was steady. But her eyes told the story of discipline, night studying, sacrifices, and quiet excellence that nobody had ever bothered to notice. My mother believed languages connect us, she said softly. She wanted me to speak to the world. She worked 3 jobs to keep me in school. I learned Mandarin when I was 12. I studied every night. I worked hard. I didn't need anyone to assume what I can or cannot do. Richard's throat tightened. His arrogance cracked. He stammered. You could have said something earlier. Aisha raised her chin. You never asked. The entire restaurant seemed to exhale. Richard looked at the check. The ink was still fresh. His hand trembled. His men were watching. His ego battled his humanity. Finally, he placed the check on the table. I made a bet. I'll honor it. But Aisha shook her head. No, she said gently. I don't want your money. Everyone froze. She continued, her voice warm, not forgiving, but wise. I just want you to treat people with respect. You never know what someone has gone through, or what they're capable of. Richard lowered his gaze, his face pale. It was the first time in years someone had challenged him without fear, and the first time he realized he had built an empire with everything except character. Ms. Lynn came forward and placed her hands on Aisha's shoulders, pride in her eyes. You have made your mother proud, she whispered. Aisha smiled softly, tears finally forming. Richard stood, for once. His voice was quiet. Thank you, he said, for teaching me something money can't buy. The door closed behind him. The restaurant returned to life, soft music, clinking glasses, warm laughter. Aisha returned to her work, calm, steady, radiant. She didn't need applause. Her strength was silent and immeasurable. Moral never judge a person by their appearance. Some carry worlds inside them that you will never understand, unless you listen.